Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a tense encounter that has captured global attention. An Iranian military helicopter flew dangerously close to a U.S. Navy destroyer, sparking a heated debate about international law, military conduct, and the growing tensions in the Middle East. This event not only raised eyebrows in Washington and Tehran, but also reminded the world of how quickly small incidents at sea can escalate into something far more dangerous. The situation began when a U.S. Navy destroyer was conducting routine operations in international waters. These waters are legally open to any nation, but they are often hotly contested when major powers operate near the territories of rivals. In this case, the destroyer was positioned in a region already marked by years of friction between the United States and Iran. The sudden approach of an Iranian helicopter wasn't just a simple flyby. It was a deliberate maneuver, and the way it was carried out made it appear more like an act of intimidation than routine surveillance. Military experts have pointed out that the Iranian helicopter flew at an unusually low altitude and hovered far closer to the U.S. warship than international norms would allow. Naval protocols make it clear that aircraft approaching a warship should maintain a safe distance. This is not just about courtesy, but about safety. A warship crew cannot immediately know the intentions of an aircraft flying so close, especially if it belongs to a nation with which relations are strained. For the U.S. Navy, such an approach can be perceived as hostile, even if no weapons are fired. The U.S. Navy has long maintained strict rules of engagement to prevent unnecessary escalation. The destroyer's crew would have been on high alert, monitoring every movement of the helicopter. Radar systems, defense weapons, and communications channels would all be active as soon as the aircraft appeared on their scopes. Imagine the tension on that deck as sailors watched the Iranian helicopter come closer and closer, unsure if it was simply testing boundaries or preparing for something more serious. Iran, on the other hand, claimed that its helicopter was simply conducting reconnaissance within its own area of interest. Officials in Tehran argued that the presence of U.S. warships near Iranian waters is itself a provocation. For years, Iran has objected to the heavy American military presence in the Persian Gulf and surrounding seas. From Tehran's perspective, the helicopter-ES actions were a reminder that foreign navies are being watched and that Iran is ready to assert its authority in the region. This isn't the first time we've seen such a close encounter between the U.S. Navy and Iranian forces. Over the last decade, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps has repeatedly engaged in aggressive maneuvers near American ships. These include small boats swarming close to destroyers, drones buzzing overhead, and now helicopters coming dangerously near. Each incident adds another layer of risk because one miscalculation, one overreaction, could lead to shots being fired. To understand why this is such a big deal, we need to look at the strategic importance of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway is one of the most vital choke points for global oil shipments. A significant percentage of the world's petroleum passes through this route, making it a hotspot for international security. The U.S. has long positioned its navy in the region to ensure freedom of navigation. Iran, however, views this as an intrusion into what it considers its sphere of influence. So when an Iranian helicopter challenges a U.S. destroyer, it is not just about two military machines. It is about control of one of the world's most critical waterways. The timing of this incident also matters. Relations between Washington and Tehran have been strained by nuclear negotiations, sanctions, and regional proxy conflicts. Every military encounter is therefore loaded with political weight. If the U.S. were to respond too harshly, it could derail diplomatic talks. If it responded too weakly, it might embolden Iran to take further risks. That delicate balance makes encounters like this one extremely dangerous. International law is another important angle. Under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, ships in international waters are free to operate without interference. While surveillance from the air is not explicitly banned, Flying at a dangerously low altitude near a foreign warship is widely seen as an aggressive act. The U.S. Navy could have classified the maneuver as unsafe and unprofessional, which is exactly how American officials described it in their public statements. From a tactical standpoint, the U.S. Navy destroyer had the capability to defend itself if necessary. These ships are armed with advanced radar systems, anti-aircraft missiles, and close-in weapon systems designed to shoot down threats. The fact that the crew did not fire shows discipline and a commitment to de-escalation, but it also highlights the confidence the U.S. Navy has in handling such provocations. They know their technological edge allows them to control the situation without immediate retaliation. For Iran, however, the helicopter maneuver was a show of defiance. It signaled to both domestic and international audiences that Iran is unafraid of confronting the U.S. Navy. At home, this bolsters the image of strength that the government wants to project. Abroad, it sends a message to regional rivals like Saudi Arabia and Israel that Iran is prepared to push back against American influence. The problem is that these shows of strength can backfire. Flying too close to a heavily armed destroyer is not just risky, it's reckless. The broader implications go beyond just Iran and the U.S. Other countries in the region are watching closely. Gulf states that rely on American security guarantees are likely reassured that the U.S. Navy remains disciplined even under provocation. At the same time, they are concerned that Iran's boldness could destabilize the region further. Major powers like Russia and China also pay attention, as both have been deepening ties with Iran. For them, these encounters serve as a reminder of the high-stakes competition playing out in global hotspots. This incident also raises questions about how modern warfare can start. In the past, large-scale conflicts often began with declarations and mobilizations. Today, they could just as easily start with a single miscalculation at sea or in the air. A helicopter flying too close, a nervous sailor pulling the trigger, and suddenly the world could be facing a crisis. That's why these events matter, even if no shots were fired. They reveal how fragile peace can be when rival militaries operate side by side. The U.S. Navy has made clear that it will continue to operate wherever international law allows. Retreating in the face of Iranian pressure is not an option, because doing so would undermine freedom of navigation for everyone. Iran, meanwhile, shows no signs of scaling back its confrontations. This sets the stage for more close calls in the future, each one carrying the potential for escalation. For observers, the big mistake in this situation was Iran's decision to push the limits so recklessly. Flying too close to a U.S. destroyer does not weaken American resolve. It strengthens it. It also risks triggering an incident that could harm Iran far more than it could harm the United States. The U.S. Navy is one of the most powerful military forces on Earth, and testing its patience is a dangerous gamble. In the end, this helicopter incident is a reminder of how fragile stability is in regions of high tension. It shows the importance of restraint, professionalism, and clear communication between militaries. But it also underscores the reality that rivalry between the U.S. and Iran is not going away. Both nations are locked in a contest of influence, and every encounter at sea or in the air becomes part of that larger struggle. The world will continue to watch as these two adversaries face off in one of the most critical waterways on the planet. What happens in the skies above a U.S. destroyer or in the waters of the Persian Gulf doesn't stay local. It has global consequences. And as we've seen, even a single helicopter flying too close can bring those consequences into sharp focus. That's the full breakdown of the event. It may seem like a small incident, but its implications run deep. The risks are real, the stakes are high, and the message is clear. In the dangerous game of military brinkmanship, even the smallest mistake can have the biggest impact.